I think most of us know and understand that if you eat healthy, you work out, you're going to see the results. You're going to feel the results internally, and you're going to see the results on the outside in your appearance. But I think the part that most of us get hung up on is, what exactly am I supposed to be eating? Like, what exactly do I do when I'm at the gym? If someone could just tell me exactly what to eat, exactly what to do, I do it. I would do it in a heartbeat. I just need that guidance, need that help, because I've tried before, like maybe I love Susie Q's body, who I see at Pilates every day. I'm like, girl, what are you eating? How are you doing it? And she tells me her diet and how she's eating. I try to emulate it, and it's not working. It's not working for me. And I think so often we need to remind ourselves that maybe my metabolism is not the same as Susie Q's.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe the amount of calories that I burn in a day is not the same as Susie Q's. And Susie Q has a completely different genetic makeup than we do. And so it's hard to remember, just don't compare yourself. And it's not cookie cutter. It's not one size fits all. Welcome to the Nashville Wellness Collective podcast, where we unite Eastern and Western health and wellness practices and ideologies. Because the most important thing is that you attain your health and wellness goals, carving out your own unique path. No two paths are the same. The Nashville Wellness Collective has you covered from east to west. So if you're into this kind of stuff, which I know you are because you clicked on the episode, you're listening, go ahead and give this a like so we can make more content like this for you. Be sure to give this podcast a follow and share it with somebody you care about. On today's episode, we have certified nutritionist and personal trainer, Ashley Clemens, who is the owner and the face of her own brand, Ashley Khristine Fitness. Thank you so much for being on the show today, Ashley.
Thank you so much for having me.
You're welcome. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. How are you doing?
Doing great as well. Thank you. As you know, I gave that brief introduction, but if you don't mind giving us a little more in-depth introduction as to who you are, what you do, and where people can find you.
Of course. Well, my name is Ashley. I live here in Nashville, Tennessee, and I work with women here training in person, actually right here where we're sitting.
Beautiful.
And I also work with women from all over the country in a virtual coaching program because, as you said, I'm a trainer, nutritionist, and health coach. And so I create a custom programming to help people really just optimize their health, their fitness, their aesthetic goals in a custom way.
I love that because, as I mentioned earlier, it's not cookie cutter.
Absolutely.
It's not one size fits all.
I know we'll go into that. Yeah. So, and I spend most of my time on Instagram. So that's a great place to find me and just get to know my personality and learn more about how to work with me.
And what's your Instagram name?
It's Ashley Clemens Fitness. Khristine is with a KH.
KH.
Yes.
Okay, perfect. So what got you here to this point in your life? What or when did you discover your passion for nutrition and fitness? Or in other words, what is your why?
Oh, I love that question. So really, it's funny because I played soccer my whole life and fitness was more of a punishment. I think a lot of athletes can relate to that, right? Like having to run and work out to prepare for your sport isn't always something you're passionate about. Sometimes it's like the downside, right? But it wasn't until just out of college that I discovered weightlifting in particular.
Okay.
And that's when things really changed for me. I learned to have more fun working out. It wasn't just running constantly into the ground. It wasn't really a punishment thing. It was like truly lifting heavy, doing fun movements like push presses, pushing sleds, climbing ropes, jumping on boxes, like just having fun with movement and lifting heavy was cool, I think as a woman, especially when you see yourself getting stronger and then seeing the change in your body and realizing, oh my gosh, my body is changing without doing all of this running, you know, and I can actually have fun with it. Those two things really inspired me. And around that same time, Instagram started to kind of get bigger. And I started to also see other women lifting weights in particular and these like fitness pages. And I think that's when the wheels started turning. I was a teacher right out of college and I was like, in another life, you know, this would be something I'd be into. I'm passionate in my personal life with it. I'm starting to see this on social media. And like, that's when things really started to change. And I saw it as like something that I was passionate about.
Yeah. I love that you in another life, but it's something that you just went for anyway. And so finding that spark or that passion, whatever moves you forward. So I'm thrilled to hear that story. That's awesome. So when it comes to your clients, when they approach you, like I just mentioned in the beginning of this, like, what do I do? Where do I even start? Can you kind of walk us through that?
Yeah, where to start. I work with a lot of women who have big goals and high expectations for themselves. And a lot of us have this perfectionist mentality as well. And this history of being either all in or all out, right? It's either I'm on it and I feel good, or it's like I'm burnt out. This is too much. Screw it. I'm off and I'm doing what I want. Right. And I like to call that the yo-yo, right? The yo-yo dieting, the yo-yo like experience. And I lived it myself. So I can relate to like living in those extremes. Right. And so when they come to me and you're ready to invest in yourself and you're like, I'm ready to change and I want to, you know, do something different. It's hard to let that mentality go though. You're like, I want to do it all. And so I think the biggest like thing that I help women with is say, no, we're going to do one. We're just going to pick one small thing. And that it's almost hard. It's like holding you back a little because it's like, I know you want to do it all, but if you do, like, we're not repeating this pattern anymore. So if I give you a to-do list of 50 things to do, you're going to get to the end of week 1 and already feel like a failure, either burnt out or just like, oh, this is too much. What was I thinking? So it's really about that first call that we have together. It's like, I know you want to do all the things. We will get to that. But this first week, we're just going to pick one. And that might differ person to person, right? A busy mom with toddlers is not going to have the same goal as like a 24-year-old who's, you know, just like never worked out before and trying to get into this healthy lifestyle, right? But there's a lot of overlap. And generally, it's like we just want to start building awareness of what our current habits are. So that might look like tracking, you know, with like using a food diary, taking pictures of our meals, or tracking using a food app, or maybe none of that at all and just tracking our daily steps and figuring out how active we are, drinking more water. It's picking a really small habit or thing to focus on for one whole week. Then we can look back on that and kind of, you know, build. It's like, okay, that was easy. What else you got for me? And now it's like, let's add something else. Now we've got momentum built. And that's really where most people need to start.
Wow. It's almost like you are reprogramming the mind first.
Yes.
And that's so beautiful because I feel like anything that we manifest in the physical, we created in the mind first.
So, I agree. That's such a good, I've never thought of it like that, but it is true. It's like, if you were at this point, we can't just repeat old patterns. They obviously got us to this point. It didn't work. So why are we trying to go back? It's like we need to actually, to your point, reprogram. This is new. So it's going to be uncomfortable. It's not what we're used to. It might be scary. We might not like it, but that's why you have someone, you know, in your corner to hold you accountable to it and say, no, this is the plan.
Yes. So typically when you introduce this concept and reprogramming and telling your clients, like, look, we're going to pick one thing and they're doing the one thing, I always hear that it takes about 2 weeks to form a new habit. Have you found that to be true, or what do you find typically works for your clients?
I think it takes a lot longer.
Okay.
I think it just, it depends. There's some people who have this habit of movement in some form, right? Maybe they're a former athlete. Maybe they go to Pilates. Maybe they run. So it might not be the optimal fitness routine, right? And we have to change it and tweak it and learn new things. But the habit of like, I'm a person who works out, there's some identity there and pattern. So that might not take as long because we're just tweaking and changing things and optimizing. Whereas, that person, nutrition might be something which is like a whole nother struggle, right? And so that person is like tweaking your fitness routine. Yeah. After a few weeks, you might be like, I love this. Let's do more. And you might pick that up and find your stride and confidence a lot quicker. Whereas changing your relationship to food and learning how to track your nutrition and optimize your choice making when it comes to going to the grocery store, eating out, that could take a lot longer.
Yeah.
And for other people, it's the exact opposite. They've eaten healthy their whole life. They've had good role models at home. And so they already are fueling themselves well, but we need to tweak their serving sizes so that they can optimize their physique. And, but they've never worked out before. So that is a whole new world, so it does depend on your background. We all have something that we bring to the table. We all have some sort of habit, even if we don't realize it. Even just the fact that we both carry some vehicle for water and we have we're just like hydrated, we don't even think it's probably like brushing your teeth. You just grab it as you ran out the door and didn't even think about it. We all have something like that, some positive habit that we don't realize that is helping us,
Yeah.
And my job is to help you recognize what you already are doing well and then build on that. But just, to kind of get back to your original question in terms of time frame, I do think that we have this, we might have this whole lifetime of habits that aren't serving us. And then we expect in just a few weeks that we're going to reprogram and reverse that. When in reality, if we have to undo years of, toxic relationship with exercise or food, we have to give ourselves 6 months to a year to truly change. Maybe it might not take that long to build a habit, but to truly like change our identity and for it to feel like brushing our teeth where we don't even think about it. We just do it.
Yeah.
You want to give yourself like, instead of just thinking about where I want to be in 2 weeks or 6 weeks, like what's the type of person I want to be next year?
Yeah. Wow.
And give yourself more time.
Give yourself time.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And like you said, it's changing your whole identity and who you are at the core. I like that reference you used of becoming second nature, like brushing your teeth. I was like, wow, yeah, when you put it that way, I think that would take some time.
I love that example too, because I don't know why I always use it, but I don't love brushing my teeth. Like to me, it's not something I like to do,
Right.
But I'm really disciplined. I do it multiple times a day.
Right.
And it's like, why do we do that? Right. It's because we know subconsciously it's important for our health, right? Like even when we're tired, we might skip now and then, but I think most of us know brushing our teeth is just one of the, you just gotta do it. Like, it's just part of self-care being an adult, right?
Yeah.
But we don't look at grocery shopping that way. We don't look at working out that way.
Wow.
But it's like, those are things that we should just hopefully get to a point ideally where it's like, we just view it like, hey, not every workout has to be amazing, but we just gotta show up for ourselves and do something, whether it's go for a walk or have a killer gym workout, because it's part of taking care of myself. And so that's like why I like that example, I guess.
I love that. Just show up. I tell myself that so many times. I'm a runner, and there's mornings when I get out of bed, I have my 2 dogs, they come run with me, and I'm like, not today. Like, I just don't want to. And then I remind myself, just show up. Like, I may not even run.
Yes. But you got out there.
Yeah.
And that like habit of showing up for yourself. And also I think not running sometimes, just showing up and saying, I'm going to walk today. That's a way of showing love to yourself. Cause you're like, I don't need to do this. Like, I'm sick. But guess what? I woke up, I
Yeah.
got outside, I was going to feel better for it, but I'm also not forcing my body to like go against, you know, if I have a cold today, like you're showing yourself love because you're being flexible, you know?
I love that. Self-love,
think,
self-help. I'm here for it. So what would you recommend to people that want to take those baby steps? They want to start their health and wellness journey. They want to start making that transformation. They just heard what you said. It registered. They're like, dang, okay, this is going to be a long haul. This is going to be a process. I need to reprogram myself. But what are some baby steps I can take to just start, let's say, with fitness, with just getting some movement in throughout their day?
I love walking. I think walking, since we just talked about it, is a great place to start because you can walk every day. We should walk every day. It's in when I say we can, I mean, you don't need to recover from it. Whereas running, as you know, as a runner, like certain runs, you need to give yourself that rest time. And walking, there's low risk for injury. And depending on your starting point, I've had clients in the past with hundreds of pounds to lose where a walk is a form of strength training. You know, that is it, not only cardio and it's a walk, you know, but it's also, you know, an opportunity to practice showing up, getting outside. And it's really hard in the beginning because there's more effort there. And so it can, you know, a walk can be so different depending on who you are. For me, a walk is an opportunity to like listen to my favorite podcast or call someone and catch up with a friend. It's like I like to passively multitask and kind of pair it with something else. And sometimes it's just a silent being in nature, being in a beautiful spot, but it also can be a time to just, you know, decompress, reflect, catch up with someone. And it is so good for us. I think we're a very sedentary society and we're stuck on our computers too much on these calls. And we're sitting just too much. And, you know, it's one of those small actions. I'm really big about simplifying and picking, like I said in the beginning, like one small action that trickles down and actually solves a bunch of other problems. So it's like, if we just start with a walk, standing up and walking more throughout our day, or if we never go for a walk, just going down the driveway and back, around the block and back, all of a sudden, like our energy improves. We took a break from work. We come back, we're a little more focused. You know, it inspires us to go further or say, oh, could I run? Or, you know, it just, our mobility, and we have tightness and weakness of our joints and these other issues, back pain, all of a sudden it could start to solve those issues. I mean, bloating, constipation after a meal, go for a walk. It improves our body's ability to digest food. It's like, I could go on and on. It regulates your blood sugar. Like it can then solve all these other things where we're like, wow, something as simple as a walk. And it's not like a run where you have to pump yourself up a little bit more to go for a run. It's a little easier to get yourself outside for a walk, I think.
I love that you said that's so eye-opening. One tiny little change has a ripple effect. I hadn't even thought about all of the
so many things.
My goodness. That could trickle down from that. That's incredible. And what would you suggest to people watching, listening right now who are maybe the opposite? Maybe they've got some movement going, but they need a little help with their nutrition and they're like, I have no clue where to start. What would be a good piece of advice, just a starting place for them to start changing that habit, to start reprogramming themselves?
There's a few different things that come to mind. The first, and you can kind of, if you're listening, decide, oh, is this me or is this me or is this like kind of pick your persona.
I love that.
Because some people, when I bring water up, they know right away, oh yeah, I don't drink water. You know, so if you're that person, we don't even talk about food. Like, let's start there because again, water intake is such an easy one that trickles down and just like walking, improves your digestion, improves your energy, your mental clarity, you know, fills you up in a way that maybe you weren't actually hungry, you were just thirsty. You know, if we're getting minerals in our water, then again, we're improving some of our maybe mineral deficiencies or just, you know, we're getting our body what it needs to really just operate and function and thrive.
Wow.
And so if you're that person that right out the gate is like, yep, I know myself, water intake could be better, start there. That's a perfect one. And start with just picking a cute bottle that you like, that motivates you. Doesn't have to be a 1,000,000-ounce Stanley. It could be,
right.
if it is great, but it also could just be something that's cute that you want to bring with you. And then that visual is like, oh, you have it on you, you're more likely to grab it.
Mm-hmm.
So many of my clients have said, like, once they start drinking more water, they're like, I don't know how I ever left the house without it. Now I'm craving it. You start to crave it.
Yeah.
The first time I ever drank, like, there was some silly challenge, like drink a gallon a day, which that's why I don't drink a gallon a day. You don't need to do that. Most people are fine with 80 ounces, depending on.
This is good information.
Yes, we can go into that, like, depending on how much you weigh, how much you sweat. Start with 60 ounces and, maybe shoot. Again, it comes to just, what am I already drinking? If you're only drinking one measly little water bottle or 2 a day, try to add one more to that. Like baby step it. But I do think in that 60 to 80 ounce range is a great foundation. And then we can build on that depending on how much you're running, sweating, sauna, how, the size of your body. A bigger person is going to need more, obviously, versus someone a little more petite. So don't go for the gallon a day challenge necessarily. But I did it once and I felt such an energy boost. It was crazy. I was like, oh my gosh, I felt like I had a cup of coffee that day.
Wow.
So I just share that to say it opened my mind of, I don't think I've been hydrating as much as I thought, and how much of a difference more water can impact your energy and brain function.
Yeah.
Your brain is mostly water. So it's like, we don't realize. That's a great place to start. If you're the person who's like, no, I have a Stanley, I drink 2 of those a day, and we're like, that's something I got down.
Yeah.
But you're like, nutrition, that's a whole nother thing.
Right.
I'm not even going to bring up protein yet. I'm not even going to bring up tracking your food yet. I would even start with just, how much of what I'm eating is being prepared at home.
Okay.
Number one, versus eating out and ordering Postmates and all of that. Like that balance, because you could order the healthiest meal out or at a restaurant, but there's all these added inflammatory oils or more sodium, and it just bloats you and gives you brain fog, and just, you can save a lot of calories even preparing that exact same meal in your own kitchen without even being aware. So how much am I eating out versus at home? How can I grocery shop? And don't even worry about what you're buying. Just cook and get comfortable in the kitchen. You don't have to be a professional chef. I definitely am not. But just heating up on your frying pan, some vegetables, some chicken breast. Just starting to get comfortable with preparing more meals at home will make a huge difference in how you feel. And the act of, okay, I'm eating, okay, now I'm cooking more meals at home. Now, what are these meals starting to look like? How much of what I'm making is coming from a package versus in its original form? Truly I'm picking, I could have visualized this out in nature, a vegetable, whole foods.
Yeah.
Without judgment, just it's all about awareness. Sometimes we just don't even realize, I'm not drinking any water a day, or I'm ordering out 2 out of 3 meals a day, or I do grocery shop, but everything is in a package. So just kind of building awareness around that and simplifying things.
Yeah.
Cooking from home, drinking more water, eating more foods that just are whole, real.
I love that.
Yeah.
Did you have another category of person? Because you mentioned the person that doesn't drink enough water, the person that does. Was there
the third person? A lot of this would be another persona and a type of client I work with who's already tracked their nutrition before. So they would take it a step further. They might be familiar with the different macronutrients, which I know we might go into today. Macronutrients being carbohydrates, fats, and proteins, and have a little bit more advanced background knowledge and familiar with what those are, and maybe used a tracking app like MyFitnessPal or something to just observe their calorie intake. But they don't know the right amounts that they need for their body and their goals. And so that person, again, when in my coaching, I actually will customize goals for you so that you have the right numbers to shoot for. But if you're just getting started with that world of tracking and learning what macros are, I would focus on your protein intake. And just that's a really great area to start, because it's just like walking in water. The more aware we are of getting protein in across the day, it kind of trickles down and solves other problems. Proteins are foods like animal products like yogurt and cottage cheese, egg, beef, chicken, fish. And then we get some bits of protein from certain plant sources as well. Tofu, soy. And those foods actually are more satiating. So they fill us up. And so they kind of trickle down, and maybe we're snacking a little bit less. Right?
Yeah.
They also will help us regulate our blood sugar a little bit more. So similarly, we're not experiencing maybe these extremes with spiking and crashing our blood sugar, which can result in anxiety and like energy dips, cravings, mood changes. And so all of a sudden, it's impacting all of these other symptoms that we're perceiving throughout the day, where we crash and then we grab a Diet Coke and some M&Ms, right? Just because we said, oh, for breakfast, I'm going to add a little protein. I'm going to have some eggs, instead of a bagel. So just, starting with your protein intake and again, building awareness. Am I even eating any protein? And then if I am, how can I make sure I'm getting it at every meal and making that a focus? And then building from there.
Yeah. So I just thought of a few questions as you were speaking on that, because you spoke to 3 people, like the first person who isn't drinking enough water. So my mom is always worried about drinking water, and she worries about her portions and how much she should drink, because she's petite like me and always says like, yeah, but then I have to pee so much. So for those, for those women, what's the proper amount? Like, what is peeing too much, too little? Like, when is it,
That's a great question. I hear that all the time, and it always makes me laugh, because I'm like, I've never once thought like I'm peeing too much, but everyone else brings it up. It's like so
it's
common.
a thing.
It is really a thing. I used to think there was like this thing going around about like you want your pee to be clear, and that is a little too much. So, but I've since learned, I think we've kind of made. If you haven't learned that, now that might be a little too much water. So you can actually monitor by looking at that, and you want like a pale yellow. To know that you're hydrated. In terms of the frequency, I mean, bladder size is going to vary, right? So somebody might actually feel like they're running to the bathroom all the time. But I like to bring this up. This yes or no to one thing is yes to another. And so instead of focusing on, oh my gosh, like I used to be a teacher, so I know leaving a bunch of kindergartners alone in a classroom.
Oh my gosh, my mom's a kindergarten teacher.
Oh my gosh, I was a kindergarten teacher. See, so I feel her pain. She's like, I can't leave these kids to run to the bathroom every time. Which, I mean, you get that responsible child to watch the room. And you can say, if everyone was on their best behavior, we get a little reward when I get back.
There we go.
Just a little teacher trick. You got to like manipulate and gamify things for the little babies. But that being said, it can feel like that when you're used, like it's such a drastic change. When you're used to never drinking and going to the bathroom, then you're like, what is this new thing? But just remind yourself, like no to one thing is yes to another. And I can give lots of examples of that, but this is just your new life. You're going to have a lot more energy. You're going to have more clarity. You're going to function better. You're going to feel better. You're going to have better digestion. So it's like, think of all the things you're saying yes to, even if you have to run to the bathroom a little bit more, and you won't even notice it. Like most of my people, unless they are like nurses and teachers, are like two that like it does affect your life, your job a little more.
Sure.
But also even like for nursing where it's like you can't leave. Sometimes like it's really strict about like the bathroom protocol, emergency situations like that. You can time up your water intake. So I have nurse clients who will drink a little bit more pre or post shift so that like maybe they're not drinking as much in that moment, So they're still getting it all in a day, but they're kind of timing it up and distributing it differently too.
Okay. All right. That makes sense. And then another question that came up in my mind as you were talking about minerals in the water. So I normally put a little bit of lemon juice and Himalayan pink salt in my water.
Right.
Are there other, the packets you can dump in there? Anything you recommend, or any Celtic salt, or like, what do you do
Yes,
for
I love that
for that?
question because that is confusing. And I recommend filtering your water if you can. And actually, a filter I used to use, which is a really good one called the Berkey, it was such a great, I mean, it filtered out even viruses. Like it was like amazing filter, but it was stripping the water of everything. So it's like, then you're in this position. So it's like, you want to filter your water because tap waters, we now know, contain pharmaceutical drugs and heavy metals and all kinds of junk, which can make us sick. So we really do want to look for a reverse osmosis filter. And, or, I mean, right now lately, because the Berkey was like out of stock for a while. So in the in-between, I was drinking Mountain Valley, which actually has minerals in it.
Oh,
so you're good. So kind of just things I'm throwing out there to be mindful of. But if you have a filter that's filtering out the minerals, then yeah, just a pinch of quality salt can go a long way. I love salts, and I buy salt from all different places and like experiment with them. I keep a little like mezcal cup on my kitchen counter so I can like pinch and like sprinkle my food. So if you're salting your food, it's also dependent on how much you're losing. If you're sweating a lot, exercising a lot, going in the sauna, you might be losing more. And then other minerals like magnesium can be depleted. And a lot of people are deficient in magnesium when you're stressed, drinking a lot of caffeine, alcohol, these things, which is everyone. We're all experiencing stress to an extent, right? And drinking caffeine, drinking alcohol, those things will deplete your minerals and things like magnesium. And so that is, you can get all your minerals tested in a blood test and get all your nutrients tested, which I recommend if you have the ability to do that. So instead of just guessing and putting random stuff in your water, you're like, I know I'm low on this, I'm going to supplement with this. But I think if you don't have that test right now, experiment with a pinch of salt in your water and lemon. That's a great way. And if you want to invest in an electrolyte powder, brands like LMNT and Relight are two brands that I like. And if you don't like the flavor of stevia, you can do the unflavored, and it will have potassium in it too. And, a lot of those, you don't need to have like every single day necessarily, or even a whole scoop or a whole packet. You can just do a little pinch and add it to your water once a day and see how you feel. Do you feel a little more energized and more hydrated? Then awesome, So experiment with that. But it's a great question because everyone's drinking different water, and some people might be more depleted than others.
Okay, that makes sense. Yeah, I hadn't thought about the amount that you sweat.
Yes, and how much you're losing from stress and other things like that.
And the caffeine thing, I'm glad you mentioned, because I've been trying to cut back on caffeine drastically. Like, I used to drink so much caffeine, too much caffeine in any given day. And so now I'm just like 1 cup, or like I just went to Frothy Monkey this morning and I get the smallest. I don't know if you've seen it. The small is like 8 ounces. Like, and they're like, small? Are you sure? Are you like, yes. The smallest. You sure? The smallest one you've got.
You don't want a bucket like the rest of us?
Right? Like, are you sure? And so I've been trying to cut back in that way because I know what you're saying is so true. And it, like you said, reforming that habit and reprogramming oneself is easier said than done, but just getting in there and
that's awesome.
And getting her done is important.
Absolutely.
Another question that came to mind when you were talking about the 3 different people, the second person you mentioned is somebody who maybe has the water thing down. They're good on water, but maybe they're eating out 2-3 times a week or 2-3 times a day, like you said. So I, the other day, went to a restaurant and it was like Thai food. And I was telling my friend who's a physician assistant, she's very into health and wellness. And I said, oh, I got this meal, blah, blah, blah. It was so good. And I was like, it was kind of healthy. It's like chicken and some vegetables. And she was like, girl, she's like, do you know how much MSG is in that Thai food you just ate? And do you know what it's doing to your body? And I was like, oh gosh, I thought it was good because it was like grilled chicken. You know? So,
exactly. It's like the additive.
Yeah. Can you talk a little bit more on maybe what people don't see, and they don't realize that they're getting from eating out, when even though they think they're eating, oh, it looks healthy. Can you talk a little bit more on how that can be deceiving?
That can be. So if you've ever worked in a restaurant, you'll know that even the grill, which is like a flat top, right?
Mm-hmm.
You've seen them. Oftentimes they're still putting butter or like, the little squirt bottle of oil, the plastic bottle where this oil is being like oxidized and reused. So it's like, and they're not using quality oil. Of course, that would be so expensive. They have the cheap oil that's been sitting, going rancid in this plastic container in this hot kitchen, and it's expired. And it's just, they're using these oils because that's what also makes our food taste good, though.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's why it tastes so good to eat at a restaurant. So don't get me wrong, I eat at restaurants, but I've also worked in a restaurant. So I know they do a little drizzle and then they throw your food on. So even when it's grilled, it's not always grilled. Like, it's actually, you would consider, if you were making that at home, like sauteed or fried,
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes, and that's why, like, I'll look out for steamed options, because if it's steamed, then usually there's not added buttered oil. And obviously you can ask and see, and maybe they'll tell you the truth. Maybe they don't even know. They might make it up. It just depends. Yeah. Sometimes the nicer restaurants are a little more aware and prepared to like answer questions like that. But just know, even if you say no butter, they could use oil or vice versa,
Okay.
And so that's like the number one, like, MSG sometimes might be more common in like that style of cooking. But the biggest one to me that I think makes the biggest difference in how we feel after a meal is the oil. It's the quality of the oil. And it's like, oil is a fat that is, when you eat grilled chicken, grilled chicken's an example of a protein, and you might eat 100 calories of chicken, but your body is going to burn maybe 10 to 20% of those calories to chew and break it down. Like, literally the digestive process. Some people might say, oh, that's a negligible amount. Like, it's a very small amount. Yes. But, it is something, and that is improved. That's like, that's part of your metabolism. Breaking down vegetables and protein requires energy to break them down for then your body to use it. So instead of it just, that's why calories there's nuance there, because 100 calories might not be 100 calories depending on what it is. Again, small amounts here. I'm not trying to like exaggerate. But it is worth noting that like that chicken that you think is 100 calories, maybe you're only taking in 80 of those calories because you're breaking it down. Think about how long it takes to chew a piece of steak. And visualize your body has to actually, there's hydrochloric acid that your stomach's releasing to break that down, versus think of taking a teaspoon of oil. You're actually going to take in all those calories. So there's what this is called is the TEF, or thermic effective food. And so protein has the highest thermic effect. It requires the most energy to break it down, which is why it's good for your metabolism.
Okay.
Certain carbohydrates are going to have a little bit you burn. Again, vegetables are a great example, but not all carbs, like sugar, not the same, right? And then fats, you can picture nuts and seeds are like a source of fat, or avocado. It's going to, and then there's like oil. Right? Like butters, oil. So you can kind of visualize. Those are not going to take as much energy to break down. You're pretty much absorbing all of those calories.
Oh, wow.
When you take that in. So it's just worth noting, because I think this goes into the conversation of like, it's not just about calories, it's about food quality when it comes to your body composition and how you feel and your metabolism. But when we're at a restaurant, now all these added oils, like, you don't feel more full from that. You just got hundreds more calories that you didn't know so to answer your question about hidden things, it's like this chicken and vegetables, which are great choices at a restaurant, but it might cost you an extra 200 calories in oils that you wouldn't have had if you made it at home. And because those oils are cheap, because of course restaurant can't afford to maybe do that. Now you've got people are like, why after I eat out do I feel just like bloated and a little gross? And it's like, it tasted really good, but you just feel a little because maybe it was a bad oil that didn't sit well with you.
That is the struggle I deal with.
Breakouts. Like, there was this oh my gosh, I heard this, I think it was a podcast I was listening to around the pandemic, where a lot of these people who eat out all their meals because they travel for work, all of a sudden couldn't travel anymore because of the pandemic.
Mm-hmm.
So they're eating meals at home, not eating out at restaurants.
Mm-hmm.
And they were noticing these drastic health changes in their health and how they felt, like inflammation in their body and like their skin. Because, and I mean, whatever podcast that I was like listening to this anecdote, it was just an anecdote, but it was like they were talking about this and how they didn't realize the impact that all of those restaurant meals were having on them.
Wow.
Until they weren't eating out for like a whole, 2-3 months. And I was like, whoa, that stuck with me. I was like, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because your skin too. So it like falls into the category of beauty niche now too.
Being inflamed, the quality of food, it impacts, how we look in other ways too. It's not just our body fat percentage, but like, yeah.
That's crazy. I hadn't even thought of, again, like you're mentioning earlier, just one little thing and the ripple effect that it has. Thank you for opening our eyes to this. This is huge. I think if there's like one big key takeaway is that we all have a unique journey of finding health and wellness and that it's baby steps.
Mm-hmm.
It's definitely a whole long process of reprogramming, but in that long process to find balance, to find your happy place and not put all that added stress on yourself. And with that said, just in conclusion, if somebody's out there listening, watching this, and they are on the cusp and they're like, okay, like I want to venture into this health and wellness journey. I want to do this, but maybe they just need that extra little push. Is there a book, maybe a book that you can suggest to them? Hey, if you're not quite ready to take the plunge with me, why don't you just read this first? Maybe it'll get you there.
Love that question. Atomic Habits by James Clear is one of my all-time favorites. I have all my clients read that book when they first start with me, if they're readers, and that will, it's not just a philosophy. There's so many self-help books out there that just are meant to inspire you. I love that book because it will inspire you, but also you could read one page, go apply it. Like everything is so immediately tangible that you can take one page, one chapter and go try it out at home. Okay. No matter what your goal is in improving your life. But there's a lot of health and wellness related examples in there. And so I think it'll inspire you. It'll give you tips to just get started on your own. Okay. And I'm such a geek nerd reader. I love books. And if anyone wants more book recommendations, they can message me and I will share. I love talking about books.
Atomic
Habits.
Okay. Atomic Habits.
So good.
Be sure to pick up that book so it will help you start your health and wellness journey. Thank you so much again, Ashley, for being on the show. And just to take everyone out, do you want to let them know again where they can find you and how they can get in contact with you?
Yes, I'm mostly on Instagram at Ashley Khristine Fitness. Khristine is spelled K-H. And I'm very active on there. You can message me. I always answer. And you can learn more about my virtual coaching experience through the link in my bio on that page.
Excellent. And be sure to give us a follow as we will have a part 2 to this interview with Ashley Clemens, where we will unveil which oils are safe to cook with. We'll also discuss how overheating oil can be bad and how oxidized oils can be harmful, and which alternative oils to buy. We will also talk about your fitness journey, and if you're just getting started, good ways to get started. And you'll want to stay tuned because we are going to dive into the topic of alcohol. Is it good? Is it bad? Is it good in moderation? What about red wine and the whole theory of 1 glass a day just to unwind is actually healthy for you? Ooh, stay tuned because do we have a doozy for you. Thank you so much for watching, and if you want to be a guest on our podcast, check us out at the NashvilleWellnessCollective.com and just click on the link that says if you want to be a guest, click here. Thanks again, and we'll catch you in the next one.